Hello. I'd like to talk to you today about one symbol of North America, the American bison. I want to explain this symbol by talking about three stories. First, the evolution of the biggest land animal in the Americas today. Second, its place in the food web of North America. And third, its habit of migration. Well, speaking on an evolutionary scale, the American bison is just a baby. And even though we often call it a buffalo, casually, it's more connected to cattle than to the Asian water buffalo. In fact, the DNA of modern bison have about 2% DNA from cattle, because of artificial selection that ranchers in the United States did, mixing cattle and bison. Yes, American bison are babies. They are just about 2 million years old. They came from Asia. In fact, the only other extant species of bison is now living in the Caucasus Mountains in Eastern Europe. Coming to North America 2 million years ago must have been an exciting time. At this time, North American continent was just crashing into, or rather just meeting, the South American continent because the Isthmus of Panama finally connected those two continents. And there was a big interchange of animals from North America, mostly invading South America. And the bison could have seen this. Now, at this time, there were so many large animals, or megafauna, which the bison had to compete with. This changed radically at the end of the last ice age with what we call the Holocene extinction event. About 10 or 12,000 years ago, all of the other megafauna, mostly, died out, leaving the American bison as the largest land animal in all of the Americas. The male bull bison can become about 900 kilos. Amazing size. And this has a big influence on their trophic interactions. What can possibly eat and take down a 900 kilogram bison? Not very much. I'll explain more later. The trophic interactions are mostly simple. The American bison is a primary consumer, mostly just eating grass and sedges, occasionally eating some twigs. This is true even in the winter, as the American bison can brush the heavy snow aside with its huge head and get to that grass, even in the deep snow of Montana or Wyoming or all the area of Canada in the Great Plains. This means that there is mostly no connection with no trophic interactions between other animals. But there are a lot of interesting beneficial interactions which the bison give to smaller animals. By clearing the snow and disrupting the soil, they provide a lot of opportunity for food for prairie dogs, rodents, and other small insects which can take advantage of that access to the soil. But yes, there is one group of animals that can make a living from hunting bison, and that's the gray wolf. Gray wolves in packs can actually take down a bison cow. At 900 kilos, the bison bull is pretty safe. And occasionally we can find a grizzly bear or other brown bear attacking a bison, but it's not a habit. Speaking of the other great apex predator in North America, the mountain lion, there's really no chance for interaction. Based on the name, you can imagine a mountain lion lives in a different area from the American bison, which really roam the Great Plains and largely avoid the mountains. So why can a wolf take down a female or a juvenile calf? Well, it's partly because of the migration pattern. Let me explain the migration habits historically of bison. The males usually don't interact with the females except at mating season. So, the cows are left to protect their calves alone, although they do travel in herds of up to 300 or possibly more individuals. They become more weak in the winter. As I said, they still depend on grass in the snow and spend a lot of energy digging for that grass. And while they can run extremely fast, perhaps 45 or maybe 50 kilometers per hour on the open grass, they are not so swift in the snow. And that's where wolves can take advantage. Well, the bison range historically was so large that they could travel for several hundred, perhaps even 1,000 kilometers in the winter and still not avoid the snow. Now they would travel away from the heavy snow into the lighter snow, but there's no avoiding the snow. They just had such a big range. And one very interesting and sad effect of this migration. When the European settlers came into the Americas and started to push and develop and go west, the trails which they used were bison trails. The easiest way to travel was to take the same road that the bison took. You can imagine this immediately had an effect on the way the bison migrated. Suddenly, they had to be worried about human guns. And shortly after that, the biggest problem, human railroads. The railroads would often mirror or sometimes exactly go on the track of bison migration. This affected the bison behavior, and even more sadly, it affected their population as the Americans would shoot the bison from the train. They were given money from the US government to do that. And the numbers of bison completely crashed. Being unable to migrate well and find that food source in the difficult winter was a big factor. The other factor, of course, just pressure from human hunting. The third factor was disease from the cattle which came in. So, from a historic population of around 30 million, the population went down at the end of the 1800s to somewhere around 500 or 600 individuals. The population has rebounded and is now somewhere around 500,000, although genetic diversity and genetic pollution from cattle remains a problem. So, I hope that I explained some story of the American bison, and I hope that you can remember that it's a newcomer but a successful story in the evolutionary history of North America. I hope you remember that they have a very interesting relationship with other small animals in their neighborhood, plus with the wolf, and that you think about how important migration is and how it is affected by human behavior. Thank you very much.